this is the G20 year, and we are extremely fortunate to have amidst us our star keynote speaker for the day, Mr. Amitabh Kant, the Sherpa for G20. Amitabh, may I welcome you to please join me on the stage. So, before we get into the specific conversation, could I get a mic, please? Yeah. As the mic comes along, let me just first narrate my personal story of meeting Mr. Kant for the first time. That was 2016. He had just taken charge from Secretary DIPP, where the Startup India movement was born. So, of course, he initiated the startup movement from the government side of things in a very organized way. And we were facing few challenges related to our business. And this was a Friday afternoon when I wrote a random cold email that would love to meet you, need some help regarding the startup that we are running. I got a mail immediately. And I was, you would not remember it, of course, but as an entrepreneur, it's a big thing. Saturday evening, 6 p.m., come to office. And I was shocked for multiple reasons. One, that was too quick a response to be coming from a person. I thought somebody else must be reading the emails, filtering emails, bringing agenda every Monday morning to the table or something. But it was real time. The other thing is, Saturday evening, 6 p.m. in a government office. What's going on? Like, who does that? And that to me was, and after getting there was, what is it? How can I do? What can I do to help you? And followed by immediate follow-up action. So, as a startup ecosystem, I think people who've been around, we are extremely grateful, sir, for having you steward this entire movement. And I would like to start by just asking you, what about startups, what about this startup agenda that gives you all the enthusiasm, motivation, energy, and that you basically stepped forward to create this movement in India? So just your thoughts on what is it that's exciting about this world?
Prashant, when we started the Startup India movement, and I still remember January 2016 when Prime Minister launched it. It was the first time we were putting only the startups on the dais, and Suji was there with the Prime Minister. There were just 452 startups in India at that point of time. Today we have over 90,000 startups, we have over 110 unicorns. And we've been able to build the third best ecosystem in the world. And I'm quite sure that what we've done is a phenomenal journey it's been. Just look at this. When we started, there were, the process of identities had just begun. We've been able to build digital identity for over 1.4 billion people. And, then between that period, if you look at it, between 2016 and 2018, we opened up about close to 500 million bank accounts. And then we seeded all these bank accounts with both your digital identity, that's your Aadhaar and your mobile number. And then the process of expanding on the mobile, so we've seen about 950 million Indians now having close to almost 1 billion people having a smartphone. So, if you look at it, during this period, I've my debit credit card, I've not been to a physical bank, I've not been to an ATM machine. For me, my mobile is my virtual bank, and I do all my transactions from here. So what India has demonstrated is that we've been able to do open source, we've been able to do open APIs, we've been able to do interoperability. We built a public track on top of which the private sector has innovated. And we are the only country where PhonePe competes with Google Pay, WhatsApp competes with Paytm. There are 40 different apps competing in the marketplace. But the remarkable journey has been that you've seen payments, digital fast payments. But then you had also a number of startups who started doing digital lending, which was all paperless. So if you look at Pine Lab, Lending Card, you look at MobiQuick, they were done digital lending. And then you had a whole set of new startups, Zerodha, Grow, Upstock, creating huge amount of wealth in the market. I mean, Zerodha controlling about almost close to 28% of the wealth management stock market in India. One young startup. Look at the kind of wealth management that has been done in India. You opened up to tier 2, tier 3 cities. And then you had another set of startups like insurance, end-to-end underwriting of insurance. So Digit and Apple, look at them. When I was buying my insurance policies, it used to take us 5 to 6 months to get an insurance policy from LIC. These guys give you insurance policy in 2 minutes, all digital. So what a transformational journey from identity to bank accounts, to payments, to credit, to wealth management, to insurance. I mean, it's been a phenomenal journey of transformation for India. And that's why, to my mind, India is unstoppable because of startups and because of the phenomenal energy, vibrancy, and dynamism they bring. So what we've done in India, nobody else in the world has ever done before. And it's important to understand this because in the world there are 4 billion people who do not have a digital identity. 4 billion people. There are 2.5 billion people who do not have a bank account. There are 133 countries which do not have a digital fast payment. And I think no country in the world today has wealth management of the kind or insurance policies of the kind that we are generating. So your market is not India, your market is the world. Your market, your ability to take what you've achieved in India to the rest of the world and capture that market. And therefore, your market is not the 1.4 billion people of India, it's the market of the next 4.5, 5 billion people who are moving to the middle class and the rest of the world. And therefore, this energy which you are demonstrating today in India actually needs to be taken out and taken to the rest of the world. And that is what we need to ride. The Indian model is a unique model and it's a phenomenal model. And if it has to penetrate the rest of the world, only the startups can do.
Phenomenal. So, sir, for the first time, startup is also on the G20 agenda. And Startup 20 is one of the key pillars of the G20 agenda. What do we look forward from this specific initiative? What do we see? The world can benefit a lot from the learnings from both the public side and the private side. How does the G20 come into the picture, and specifically with respect to the Startup 20 agenda?
So this is the first time, in India's presidency, we've actually started an engagement group called the Startup 20. And this is being driven by the Atal Innovation Mission right now, and with a number of other startups. There are many startups involved in this. And actually, they've done a meeting in Hyderabad. They're doing one in Sikkim right now. But the important reason why we've started this Startup 20 is because the Indian model is unique. If you look at the last 2.5 decades, world over, all over, the innovation that has happened, it's all been driven in the last 2.5 decades by the big tech. It's been driven by Google, it's been driven by Apple, it's been driven by Microsoft, and it's been driven by Meta and or Amazon in USA, and it's been driven by Tencent and Alibaba in China. So you have the big tech model in the United States, and you have the GDPR model in Europe. the GDPR model, actually, Europe was very concerned about privacy issues, and therefore they focused on privacy at the cost of innovation. And actually, Europe has not seen much innovation happening in the last 2.5 decades on the digital tech model. But the big tech model grew because they were able to access citizens' data. And yours data, my data, every data is being used for artificial intelligence, machine learning, mining, and so on. So all innovations that have happened, IoT, cloud, everything that has happened, AI, all that has happened is because of yours and my data with the big techs. In sharp contrast to this, India built a very different model. India built a model of railway tracks on which we allowed private sector to innovate and compete. We built up a model of open source, open APIs, and interoperability. And therefore, our view is that what India has demonstrated is, population scale model at very low cost. And we've demonstrated that the cost of acquisition in India itself, I mean, look at the rollout of Geo, for instance. During this period when they got about 200 million people in India, they could do this in 120 days. 120 days to get 200 million, acquire 200 million customers. I mean, they could do it at $1 per customer. That was the acquisition cost. Prior to this, the cost of acquisition in India itself was $25. But the cost of acquisition in America today is about $200. So we made the cost of acquisition of customer fall from $200 to $1 in India. And that is the big thing in India, that our ability to use technology, our ability to use digital identity. I mean, when I was a young officer, I was working with the traditional fishermen in Kerala, and my job was to transform lives of traditional fishermen. I gave them outboard motors, they could go much further into the sea. I gave them new disco nets, which were then known as disco nets, fishing nets, gave them new crafts. Their production increased, their productivity increased. But fishermen were prone to drinking. And because they live a very topsy-turvy life, they used to drink every night. So my job was then to open their bank accounts, and so that 50% of the money could go into their bank account. Opening a bank account was a nightmare. Chasing physical bank managers, doing know your customer, used to take 7-8 months. Today we do it in less than a minute on a biometric. So what we've demonstrated is a huge ability to technologically pole vault. And that is the big story of India. And I think that transformational work, the building blocks have all been laid. And that is why I think the future is all India. Is all because of the energy and dynamism that young startups have brought in. And that is the big way forward for us. So many people, when you talk about this huge winter of money not flowing in, let me just say that 2021 was an exceptional year when you had about 35 billion flowing in. 2022 as well, you have close to about 26, 27 billion flowing in, and that will continue to flow in. Now, 27 billion is a lot of money, still a lot of money, and I still feel that I'm a great believer that the success stories of Indian startups, those who are well governed, who have a good business model, they will continue to attract a lot of money, and you will soon see a lot of Indian companies, a lot of Indian family businesses, a lot of Indian insurance and pension funds. They will also putting aside money into investing in startups, because you will then have a lot of good startups looking at their governance model, at their business flows, and I don't think money will ever be in short flow for those who have a good business model.
Yes, and now we have the building blocks in place, the key foundational elements in the ecosystem, initiated by government infrastructure, propelled by private enterprise on top of that. That movement is on. But the rate at which new emerging technology is coming up, the way new industries that never existed and new powers like AI, blockchain, crypto, space tech, clean energy, etc., etc. The gamut is infinitely vast now. How do we make sure that the Indian entrepreneur leads the charge on this? And from that perspective, as a ecosystem, as a country, what would be, in your mind, the priority areas? Where is the sunshine? Where can India win?
So Prashant, we are today the fastest growing large economy in the world. We're growing at about 7%. We are the fifth largest economy. We are on track to be the third largest economy by 2030. But it's very important that our emphasis must be on raising up per capita incomes because we are a large population, 1.4 billion people. It's also important to understand that there's a difference between 7% rate of growth. If you grow at 7%, you'll take your per capita income from $3,000 in 2047, you'll take it about to $15,000. If you grow at 8%, you'll take it to about $18,000. If you grow at 9%, you'll take it close to about $24,000. But if you grow at 10%, you'll take your per capita income per head to about close to 32,000. So the compounding power of growth is so enormous, and therefore the passion and the commitment for growth at high rates is very important. We should not settle for anything less than 9 to 10%. I'm saying this because countries like Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and in recent times China have actually done that 10% growth for a very long period of time. They've done it for almost 2 decades, 10% growth. And why did they do this? And how did they do this? They did this on the back of just 2 things. One is they went in for technology and the sunrise areas of growth. So if you don't go digital, if you don't get into sunrise areas of growth, and to my mind, if you don't go green, it will not be possible for you to grow. Because all the valuation and your ability to attract capital will come in if you are a digital company and if you are going green. That is the future, and if you get into sunrise areas of growth. So when I was structuring the production-linked incentive scheme, my whole focus was focus on sunrise areas of growth. And therefore, the PLI was structured for electric mobility, it was structured for battery storage, it was structured for solar, it was structured for green hydrogen, it was structured for mobile manufacturing. All these are new emerging areas of growth. So my view is that cloud, AI, quantum computing, robotics, drones, opening up space, all these are future areas of growth where a lot of work in terms of liberalization has been done. And I think these are areas which will really propel growth for India. To get the size and scale is important in all these areas. A huge amount of technological disruption is required. India needs to get into deep tech in a very big way, and all these are very important. But there's also a very important area, and that is about going green. And to my mind, the world is going to go green because, we are not responsible for carbonizing the world. At 1.5 degrees centigrade, we occupy, the total carbon space available is 2,800 gigatons. 2,400 gigatons has been occupied by the developed world. We are not responsible for that. But yet, if India is to grow, otherwise we'll all be extinct. India is to grow and expand. We must become the first country in the world to industrialize without carbonizing. And if you do that, the whole world will put money into you and your companies, because it's not that there is a shortage of money. There's a vast amount of resources available. There's a huge amount of resources available with institutional funders, pension funds, who want to put in money, but they want to put in money into those companies which are going green. And therefore, going digital and going green is really the way forward.
Yeah, and see, a lot of sectors, for example, green, I think there's universal agreement that that's where the world needs to be. But when it comes to specifically going after those opportunities, the world also needs to come together from a policy perspective, which I believe is one of the G20 agenda items. Can you talk more about the G20 and why and how does it come together? What exactly does this forum do? And as the leadership this year and as the Sherpa, what are your expectations and aspirations from this year?
So G20 comprises of both the G7, that is the developed world, and the emerging markets. It's important because G20 contributes about 85% of the global GDP. It accounts for about 78% of the global trade. It accounts for about 90% of the patents. It accounts for 2/3 of the world's population. So 90% of the patents, 85% of the global GDP comes from G20, and that's why it's very important. Now, it's important because India's presidency is important because so far, India has always been responding to agenda set by the developed world. This is the first time that an agenda is being set by India for the rest of the world. Whether it's startup, whether it's accelerating the pace of inclusive, resilient growth, whether it's climate action, whether it's sustainable development goals, or whether it's digital transformation. The agenda is being set by India and others are giving their perspective on that. And our job really is to bring a consensus around many issues, including how to drive startups, how to build the right ecosystem for digital transformation, how to take the Indian narrative of digital transformation to the rest of the world, how to take the Indian narrative of what we've achieved during COVID, of providing 2.2 billion people, 2.2 billion vaccination, which is totally digital, and how we've been able to integrate, become the pharmacy of the world and the vaccine capital of the world, and integrate it with Ayurveda and yoga to the rest of the world. So there's a huge opportunity to push the Indian narrative to the rest of the world. But it's also important to tell the world that, it's very, very important to tell the world that the kind of development that we've achieved, it's not just that we've done digital transformation. Today we do 11x more fast payments, digital fast payment. We do 11x more fast payments than what USA and Europe do together. So you want to understand this. We do 4x more payments than what China does. That's the kind of leapfrogging we've done because we do direct debit credit from the bank rather than going through a wallet. We've been able to build 30 million houses. 30 million houses in the last 8 years. And 30 million houses is like providing a house to every single Australian. And we've been able to build 110 million toilets in India. 110 million toilets means like providing a toilet to every single person of Germany. Every single person of Germany. And we've been able to prove, 243 million citizens have been provided piped water, which is like providing piped water to every single person of Brazil. And we do 500 million people with health insurance scheme, which is totally paperless, cashless, digital. So I can be living in Bihar, moving to Tamil Nadu, I'll carry my health insurance. That's almost twice the population of the United States. We built 55,000 kilometers of highways. 55,000 kilometers of highways is making, 1.5 times the diameter of the earth with complete road. So the size and scale of what India has done is just phenomenal and mind-boggling. I just tweeted today this paper which has come out from IMF that we've lifted 109 million people from extreme poverty between 2016 to 2022. So what India has achieved in terms of size and scale of the transformation is just mind-boggling and phenomenal. We don't realize it because we're seeing this on a day-to-day basis, but the transformation story of India has been just enormous.
Fantastic. Now, government has been doing a lot of work. Private sector has been doing a lot of work. How can the two work closer together to solve more problems, more challenges? Or do you see it's already happening in a big way? How can startups participate more in the agenda of the government, in the agenda of the country?
So, when we started the Startup India movement, there was a lot of regulatory cholesterol, actually. And, there was so much of regulatory cholesterol that actually we had to find a definition for a startup. The reason why we had to find a definition for a startup was because there were labor laws, there was so much of Inspector Raj that and we had to exempt the startups from everything else. If we hadn't done it, we would have every startup will have an inspector on his door every third day. So we defined startups and we then got a separate order issued saying that no labor law will apply here and therefore no inspector will go there. So there was, since then we've done a lot of work around the ease of doing business, scrapped about 1,500 laws, simply because we believe that actually government should only do policy making. The wealth creation is the job of private sector, is the job of young startups. Disruption is your job. Wealth creation is the job of the private sector. And actually, government should get out of every single business. And actually, the government's job should only be to ensure that we are able to provide better education, better health, better nutrition. But wealth creation, business, taking India forward in terms of being a $35 trillion economy should all be the job of the private sector. So all of you should really disrupt India every single day. All of you should really, do a lot of wealth creation and drive India in all these new areas of growth which we are talking about. That is the way India will grow and prosper. It will not grow and prosper because the government is trying to do business. It will grow and prosper if government keeps getting out of businesses and you people create wealth.
And as we look at government and regulation, especially for new age sectors, one of the key things that the ecosystem looks for is clarity, ease, and a time-bound framing of the regulatory direction. Investors need it, entrepreneurs need it, and all of that. As a government ecosystem, what's the structural reform that is going on to enable some of these things?
So the structural reforms, if you go back, unlike the rest of the world, which Suji spoke about, Europe and America gave a huge package. They've brought in so much of liquidity, which has now led to inflation. And because of inflation, you are tightening down and you're raising your interest rates. And as a consequence of this, several banks which have taken deposits from startups and Silicon Valley banks, etc., put their money into US Treasury. And as the interest rates rise, you're facing this challenge because there's an inverse correlation between interest rates and bonds. And therefore, these banks are suffering because of the rising inflation rates. And the big packages, the root of the crisis is the big packages given by these countries. In India, we didn't give big packages. We brought in radical reforms. You look at the goods and services tax, which subsumed 32 different taxes, all digital. We brought in the insolvency bankruptcy code so that people could fail and get out. And there should be no price for a failure. All of us are bound to fail at some point or the other. And insolvency bankruptcy code takes place that. Many of us who come from a middle class background, we all suffered because of adequate regulation of, from these construction companies. And therefore, we brought in the government brought in the regulation, Real Estate Regulation Act. The government redefined the MSMEs, which was pending for almost 3 decades. And actually, the corporate tax was brought down to the best rates possible across the world. And therefore, a lot of FDI has come in because of the corporate tax being brought down. So a huge amount of reforms have been carried out across the Indian economy. And actually, these reforms are going to pay you in the next 3 decades. These reforms are going to provide a massive impetus to Indian economy as the world slows down, as you feel this huge winter of discontent in many parts of the world. You will see an acceleration of growth in India because of the vast amount of structural reforms that have been carried out, including ease of doing business, including scrapping 1,500 laws, decriminalizing many of them. And I think the way forward is make things easy, and make India the easiest nation to do business in. That is the way forward. just scrap all rules, regulation, and procedures so that no act should, to my mind, be more than 3 pages. No rules should be more than 2 pages, and no form that you guys fill up should be more than 5 or 6 columns, and it should all be digital. And nobody should have a physical interface with the government. It should all be digital interface, and we should be able to solve all problems of our citizens digitally.
Absolutely amazing. I think, that's the India we all want to build together. That's the India we want to live in, and I think that's well said. It's a funding winter or a winter with challenges all over the world, but it's springtime in India, and we look forward to continuing our endeavors as we build this ecosystem together. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time today and coming to Gurgaon all the way for this conference. I know we have a lot of questions, but do we have time to take one or two? We are out. We can maybe take one. I have 30 seconds. The gentleman behind us, please. Have to be very quick. I think you can both speak your questions quickly.
I'm an IT student. I have 10 years of experience in the same industry. We're talking about circular economy and sustainability. I'm building a platform for circular economy and electronics. So what would be your suggestion to promote this faster through the government?
Okay, so and I think I'll take both the questions and then so you can respond.
The startup seed funding scheme, which was notified in January 21, has an eligibility criteria of only 2 years of incorporation. I was wondering if some relaxation could be given so that it can benefit more startups. This is regarding the 20 lakh initial grant and then the 15 lakh marketing debt funding that is given. If that can be considered.
Two questions. Circular economy, what is the potential within the government ecosystem? And second, on the seed funding.
Yeah, so circular economy has got a phenomenal future. You're on the right track, and I think the government is laying a lot of emphasis on circular economy, particularly they've identified about 13 sectors in which electronics is one of them. And I think if you're focusing, you said you're focusing on electronics only? Yeah, so that's the huge amount of potential of doing it in electronics sector, because India is making sure that circular economy norms are implemented, and the Ministry of Environment has already come out with the rules and regulations on the electronic side of it. Detailed norms of what each sector has to do will be issued across 13 sectors. But circular economy is really the way forward. The Prime Minister himself has laid a lot of emphasis, and both Niti Aayog and Ministry of Environment and Forests have worked together across these sectors. And electronics is a very, very key area in that. So you're on the right track. Any help we can provide you, I'll be very happy to do that. So just send me a mail. And on the seed fund, the intention of that was to pick up startups which have become stable. You have to give them 2 years of time to mature. If you do it too early, but what I'm suggesting is just give me a note, just a one-pager on my No, so just send me a mail. Okay, so just send me a mail. I'll get this examined, and we'll try and find a way out for this. So I'll be very happy to look into this and try and assist you on this.
All right, I think there are lots of questions, but we are unfortunately out of time. Of course, a lot of people would want to ask specific questions, but thank you so much, sir. Personally and on behalf of the startup ecosystem, really grateful for your continued leadership and stewardship of the startup ecosystem here. Thank you.
Because you had some issues, and anybody who wants to send me a mail, it's at Amitabh.Kant@nic.in. Just send me a mail. If anybody else also who has a challenge or a problem, I'll take it up with the right people, your problems to be solved. So let me just congratulate all the startups who assembled here today, and for this tremendous energy and dynamism. And let me also congratulate TiECon Delhi-NCR region for this phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal energy that we did today. Congratulations.